Okay, everybody, if you want to grab your seats, we'll go ahead and get started. I think the rain's kept a few away. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Columbia Chamber Small Business Breakout. I'm Adam Jones with Jones McCadden & Associates, a small association management firm here in Columbia. And today's panel and topic is about how to retain employees and thrive as a small business. I know that I'm hiring and finding quality people is hard, so retaining what I have is very important. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on today. We have a fantastic morning ahead of us, packed with valuable insights and opportunities for networking. But before we start, we have a couple sponsors I'd like to bring up here. First, it's opening day here in this beautiful ballpark, so we're going to have Brad come up and talk about what's going on here at Fireflies.
Good morning, everybody. How are we doing?
Great.
Good. It's opening day. We need y'all to get loud. There we go. I got my neon belt. We're ready to go for tonight. So it is our 8th season here at Segra Park. So the Columbia Fireflies will be opening up tonight against the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. We've got lots of fun coming up. It's a $2 Tuesday, so that means $2 Miller Lights, hot dogs, popcorn, and soda. So when everybody else's prices are going up, ours are staying the same. So you can come out here, buy a $6 lawn seat, and then get a beer and a hot dog, so $10 and your night's taken care of. So we've got a lot of fun coming up this week. We've got some new things this year. If y'all didn't hear, we are having our alter ego, our first food identity with the Grits. So for about 5 games this year, we will transform into the Carolina Grits, and with that, I believe we are becoming the first ballpark in the country to have a grits cart. So we'll have a grits cart that serves nothing but shrimp and grits, loaded grits, chicken and grits. So you can get them in a little mini helmet. So it's not just Dippin' Dots and ice cream that go in those mini helmets. We've got grits in them now. But please come out and join us tonight. It is Chamber Night here at the ballpark tonight, too. So go to the Chamber website. They've got information on tickets, and we've got a lot of fun coming up this season. So can't wait to see you at the ballpark.
Thank you, Brad. I hope to see y'all tonight. I know I'll be here, and always looking forward to it. Such a great addition to Columbia. It's hard to believe it's been 8 years. And next, we'd love to bring up Steve Padgett with BlueCross BlueShield to talk about what he can do for your small business. Steve?
Good morning.
Morning.
It's tough to top grits in a mini helmet. I don't know. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it. Next time, can we talk and I go first? I mean, I had a whole thing about it. There's this tournament in Augusta, but it was really opening day for baseball, and I mean, I don't know what to say now. But good morning. It is great to be here. I do want to talk a little bit about small business. One of the things that we have heard over the last 24 months or so is that employees, are hard to find. Side note, if you're looking for a recent college grad, I know one who's related to me. My son is looking for a job, so see me afterwards if you're looking for a quality employee. But beside that, employers are really looking for ways to retain their employees. And one of the most valuable assets that you can provide to your employees is to see their opportunities, but then to be able to provide them health insurance security and invest in your employees. So you may have thought, well, I can't afford health insurance. I can rest your mind's easy. There are plan options for you that you can decide what that investment is for your employees. So when it comes time to look at health insurance, look at your local BlueCross BlueShield of South Carolina when it comes to investing in your community. I look forward to seeing you guys here at Segra as well. But if you have questions about offering health insurance as a way to grow, retain your staff, I'll be around afterwards. I look forward to having a conversation with you. So, by the way, the Masters starts Thursday as well.
Thank you, Steve. Steve's really easy to work with. He can quote anybody, any size pool, so if you need some health insurance, please do talk to Steve. A couple things that we've changed in the last couple meetings is one, we have 2 door prizes, one for your non-member partners, but we'd love for you to be partners. The other is to recognize one of our partners, since we are the Small Business Council, so let him come up. I think it was 2 times ago, or maybe last time we did an elevator speech. So we want to bring up Barry Robinson to come give his elevator pitch. Never mind, Barry didn't make it this morning. Maybe weather kept him away. So.
Not here this morning.
All right, well, we will have the TD drawing for everyone else afterwards. Make sure you get your business card to them. We'll do a quick pass-through beforehand. So let's jump right into the panel. Again, we're talking about retention today. We have some great panelists, so I'm going to start off by asking each panelist to introduce himself and give us a little about what you do for your organization and what your organization is. So,
Thank you. I'm Nina Staggers. I'm the Assistant Executive Director for Workforce Development at the Department of Employment and Workforce. We are a cabinet agency that has a statewide reach in all 46 counties of the state. We recently have been assigned with the responsibility to chair and manage the Coordinating Council for Workforce Development with recent legislation that was passed last year. And through our network of partners, as well as our brick and mortar facilities and our mobile and virtual connections, we're able to provide services to employers of all sizes and in all industries, as well as to help job seekers prepare for employment, enter employment, and hopefully remain successful in those employment opportunities. My role at the Department of Employment and Workforce is to lead our strategic planning for workforce development, research and innovation, as well as to develop and implement workforce programs that help to provide awareness to job seekers about the opportunities that are available to them, to prepare them for employment through training and upskilling, and then to help them actually enter into employment, and therefore helping employers by finding and being connected with those job seekers who are ready for work.
Thank you. And I'm Emily James. I work for Find Great People. So we do recruiting and staffing at the professional and IT staffing level all the way up to executive search in the C-suite. And we can kind of find anything in between. But beside from that, we also do HR consulting and leadership development. So retention is right up our alley. We say we like to find, develop, and retain talent here. My role, I'm an account manager, so I work in business development with some of our state and local agencies, but also with small businesses. So happy to be here today.
Good morning. My name is Hope Broadway, and I am the president of Palmetto HR Business Partners. And what we do is we work with small to medium-sized companies, and we help them manage their most valuable resource, their employees. So we do HR outsourcing. We can become your department's HR department, and we also do consulting. We also do leadership development, training, anything that you need within the human resources realm.
very good. Okay, so our first question, and I'll start this way, and then y'all can pass it on down or go whichever way you want. But what would you identify as the biggest workforce development issue currently facing South Carolina? And how is it impacting our regional small businesses?
Yeah, so I'll start with a little bit of background and then answer the question for you. But we have partnered with the State Chamber of Commerce to distribute a survey every month that's called the Palmetto Business Barometer. And that survey is intended to sort of measure business sentiments with a specific emphasis on sort of how employers are viewing the economy and how they're viewing workforce and how those issues are contributing to their overall competitiveness. And in November, we asked the Chamber to add some additional questions to help us drill down into what the workforce issues are. I mean, we hear anecdotally that workforce is the #1 issue, but what specifically in the scope of workforce are employers struggling with? And what we found in response to those questions is that really the top 3 issues are around recruiting and hiring, training and reskilling, and then of course retention being the third there. In terms of how that's affecting employers, generally speaking, it's affecting their ability to be able to grow and remain competitive in the state. And so what we're trying to do is tackle that from a couple of angles. One, we find specifically with small employers that while there are so many resources available to help with all 3 of these issues, that often there's not an awareness of what those resources are, and there is difficulty actually accessing those resources. Because as you all very well know, especially in a small business, an individual person is wearing multiple hats. So there's not always a person that's dedicated to going out and finding these resources. And so we want to make it easier for employers to be able to access those. A couple of things that we're doing is one, and this sounds cliche, but trying to partner better with other organizations that provide these services. At any given time, there are multiple state agencies, nonprofits, local organizations that are providing some of the same services. And what that appears to an employer is that there's a duplication. So they're getting multiple calls about these resources and services, and it's taking away from, really the quality of it at times, because to the employer, it is sort of overwhelming. So one of the things that we have tried to do better is partner with other organizations to provide these services. And as an example of that, we've recently executed a memorandum of agreement with the Department of Commerce, as well as the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, that will provide for us to have joint outreach to employers, which is something that we've not really had very intentional in the past. So that's one example of how we're trying to make the access to employers a little bit easier and streamline those processes. We've actually rolled out a new tool as well that's called a personalized employment plan. And so when we go out to meet with an employer, we have an assessment that we would go over with that employer to try to understand what the specific needs are, and then develop a plan that aligns resources that are unique to that employer's needs. So instead of the employer having to sort of wade through a pool of resources, we're able to say, here are some that are curated for the issues that you have identified to make it a little bit easier to access those. And then the last thing that I'll just mention that we're doing more in the long term, so it won't be available for a little while, but as part of that piece of legislation that I mentioned that was passed last year, the Statewide Education and Workforce Development Act, there's a requirement to create an education and workforce portal to ease the ability for both job seekers and employers to find the resources that they need. And so we are right now developing a contacts map. So the map will be interactive. You can click on any county and you can see who your point of contact will be for agencies like the Department of Commerce, our agency, the technical college system, so that you can have immediate access to those points of contact. And then we're also rolling out with that an interactive inventory or directory rather of services that are available. So you can indicate, I'm an employer, I'm a small business, I am looking for retention resources, and we'd be able to filter out those resources, again, to provide access to a more curated list of things to help with the specific issue that has been identified. So those are some examples of things that we're doing within our agency and our cross partners to make it easier for employers to access the resources that are available.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of knowledge. I'm up here taking notes myself, so. So obviously a workforce development issue we're facing is the worker shortage, right? So in South Carolina, there's 43 available candidates for every 100 open jobs. So kind of alarming, but it's okay because we have solutions to help, right? But with that comes also increased wages. So we're continuing to see those wages climb and, lead to inflation. So there definitely are some additional issues with that worker shortage. But, at a high level, solutions, just like you were mentioning, we do also have a unique talent pool here in South Carolina through all of our colleges, our technical colleges, even our high schools that have trade schools associated there. So I think the best way, while the portal's being built, is making sure that you're at those job fairs. Seek the college or the technical college that makes most sense for you with the students and the population coming out, and make sure they know who you are. I think that's going to be, your first step in getting some new talent. And what we're facing is our worker shortage, but I think there's solutions.
Yeah, and I agree with what both of these ladies said. It is, retention. It's trying to find the right talent. Of course, they've shared with you what to do about recruiting. So one of the things you want to do is try to retain your talent, and it's really just about finding ways that speak to your employees. And if you look back 20 years ago, just offering health insurance and a 401k is not going to cut it in today's world. So it's really asking your employees, finding out what their needs are, and kind of preparing a benefits package, if you will, that kind of speaks to them, offering flexibility. A lot of people still want hybrid or some sort of remote work situation. So being flexible, having flexibility, because the Gen Z is definitely not the Gen X at all. I can tell you that. So we have to pivot, and we have to make modifications on how we communicate with our employees, and what kind of benefits and offerings and flexibility that we can provide to them to be able to retain them.
Very good. Well, you kind of touched on some of this being benefit package, but
Sorry.
are there any solutions you've already identified that can help retain people?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of what I was saying. And by the way, Steve, I'm going to get in touch with you. One of the first things, that my small businesses that I deal with, my clients, a lot of them don't have health insurance. And so that's something that's very important to employees, even younger employees. They still need health insurance. So I think that's critical. Making sure that you're paying to the market. You have to pay to the market. So if you don't know what that is, I suggest that you reach out to someone who can get you that market data, because employees, there's a lot of employers that are still not paying to market, and they lose their employees. They will jump ship for a couple more dollars, on the hour. But, like I said, finding what they want, doing a survey with your employees, finding out what speaks to them. Is it childcare? Is it, help with getting off, say, one afternoon during the week so that they can go spend time with their kid or maybe an aging parent, and just being flexible and not being so rigid in these are the benefits and this is all you shall get, having some flexibility from one employee to the next.
Yeah, and I would piggyback off of that too, is just getting creative with your solutions, right? Like you said, be flexible. It's not a one answer kind of thing, If you go to Steve and that insurance plan just isn't in your budget right now, ask that employee, where can I help you? Can you do some sort of reimbursement for insurance if you can't cover it all? Can you help a little bit if you can't do it all right now? And as you grow, hopefully you get there, right? And flexibility doesn't just mean hybrid. Can you work through lunch on Friday and leave at 4? Or do you work 7 to 5 and have Friday afternoons off? I think everybody would enjoy leaving at 3:30 on a Friday, right? And you're not going to miss that many phone calls because I think everybody's kind of ready to go, right? But so I just think thinking creatively, asking your employees, what could I do for you? How could I make your life, easier? Incorporating that work-life balance is going to go a really long way. Like I said, if it's an hour on Friday afternoons or if it's the entire afternoon, figuring out what works for not only your employee but also you, and kind of make it a symbiotic relationship in finding those solutions.
The only thing I'll add to that is we promote very heavily training and upskilling as a retention strategy. And we have just found that, and this whole conversation is, yes, there is a labor shortage, and yes, it is very difficult to find new employees, but really focusing on how to retain the existing workforce that you have. And so one of the programs that we offer is called Incumbent Worker Training, and we're able to reimburse an employer, in most cases up to 90% of the cost of training their workforce. And we promote that heavily as a retention strategy that should be a part of how that employer is promoting education, upskilling, credential attainment, even for their existing employees. One specific employer comes to mind. We've had many conversations about the fact that they're able to hire someone who doesn't have a high school diploma as long as that employee passes a standardized type of employment test. And one of the things that we always talk about is that's wonderful, But what is the plan for helping those employees obtain their high school credential once they're employed? How are we going to continue to invest in their upskilling, their credential attainment, which is economic mobility for them, and it's a benefit to the employer long-term as well. So definitely connecting with your local SC Works to learn about the incumbent worker training benefits and how that can be aligned with your plans for educating and upskilling. The other thing that I would mention is just to piggyback off of the competitive wages. We have a very robust labor market information division, and one of the primary services that we provide to employers is to provide labor market information, specifically around competitive wage packages. So offering a comparison to what the regional wages are that other employers are paying, and making sure that your wage is competitive. So happy to help with that in any way that we can. And that's a free service. It's a request that's made to our agency, and at no cost to the employer, we're able to provide that type of labor market information.
Very nice. Well, technology plays a lot in everybody's life. Can you give us an idea how businesses can adapt to meet evolving needs and modernization, considering technological advancements that we even as employers have to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to start, and then, if you ladies have other things to add in. I mean, I think the message is not to shy away from those technological advancements. I mean, they're happening. We're having conversations about artificial intelligence and how that's going to impact, the workforce from the perspective of, are there going to be layoffs that result from artificial intelligence, or are there going to be changing skill requirements that, if the employee is trained the right way, would allow them to stay employed, would allow that employer to retain those employees. So I think the message is not to shy away from those technological advancements, but to understand how they are going to impact your workforce and what type of training and upskilling is going to be required to help to retain the employees that you have. And a primary example that comes to mind is, as we are working through this electric vehicle transition, we have automotive manufacturers in South Carolina, small, medium, and large, that manufacture parts for internal combustion engines. And so in order for them to remain competitive in the state, they're going to have to figure out how to be a supplier for electric vehicles. And so one of the primary conversations that we're having with them is, as you're working through, these advanced manufacturing technologies, what type of resources are you going to need to prepare your workforce for the transition so that they can come with you? So, my perspective is, don't shy away from them. Look at those technologies that are going to help with overall effectiveness and efficiency, the bottom line of the organization, but then also paying attention to how are those advancements going to affect the workforce, and what strategies do you need to deploy to be able to retain your employees through that transition?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think it's so important to not be afraid of AI. Use it to your advantage. If you're doing a duplicative task or something feels repetitive and you feel like there's surely a way that you can save time, there probably is through AI. I know we're using it at FGP. One thing we like to do, if we're sending you a candidate, we like it to all be in the same font. We like it to have our letterhead on there. We send that through a system and let AI do it so that our recruiters can make more calls. We're not afraid. Let's give it a go. If we don't like it, we don't have to use it, but let's try it out first. So I think just not being afraid, and exactly like you said, continuous training and development. If you implore your staff to take on that challenge as well, give them options to go and take that AI training. I think that you just embrace it. And it's here to help. I think, not being afraid.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on what they were saying, and to go a little bit further as far as the employees' concern is, I think that, communicating with your employees about the changes that have to be made, making sure that they understand the why behind, the changes, and then also for your Gen Zers, listen to their ideas. They're a lot smarter than my age group as far as technology. And, I have a young lady that works with me, and she's coming up with all sorts of wonderful ideas that I implement all the time. So listen to your team members. They have a lot of good ideas and good suggestions. But staying in communication with them and explaining the why behind why you're asking them to do this training. And you might find some training, obviously, through SEDO, LinkedIn Learning. They have wonderful training programs that you can just go on there and get all sorts of certifications and in like 30 minutes or an hour's time to get those mini webinars. So just listening to your employees and staying in communication with them is the most important aspect.
And one more thing I'll say too is, I think we're learning that maybe customer service isn't best served through AI. Nobody really likes calling and not talking to a person. So let's, use AI to our advantage, but not to take away some of these jobs. Let's keep people in our jobs, but there are some things that maybe the computers can do too. So I think, reassuring that you need the people, but let's also use this to take something off your plate so you can get things done more efficiently.
And I'll just add to this, y'all both said communication and training. That's so helpful. My staff ranges from an intern that's not even 21 to 60 years plus. And, Microsoft Office isn't just the only thing we're using nowadays. Mm-hmm. And then through trial and error, also with the older employees, not having the younger ones train them wasn't the best idea because it made them not kind of feel less. So it was worth investing in someone else to train them on some of these new programs that we're using and new software, or giving them the time to do the tutorials they could probably learn themselves. Just communication and training, I think, when it comes to technology is just key.
That's great.
What strategies has been successful in retaining talent?
I can take that one. So in my role, I work with a lot of clients that have employee issues. And just in my 30-plus years of human resource management, I've done a lot of exit interviews with employees that are leaving the organization. And they tell you a lot of things on the last day that they're there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, one of the things that we hear the most as far as being an issue is lack of communication with the employee and their manager, lack of clarity in the expectations that the manager has of the employee. So the biggest thing that I can, implore that you do is make sure that you're meeting with your employees on a regular basis and making sure that they have a clear understanding of their expectations. Don't just assume that someone knows what they're supposed to be doing just because you hired them to be a, sales executive. Give them your way, let them know how you would like it done and what the results are. But the biggest thing is meeting with your employees, especially in the early stages. Meeting with them, I would say, in the beginning on a weekly basis. Maybe after a month or so, you can meet with them every 2 weeks. Gen Zers love face-to-face meetings, believe it or not, with their managers. Gen Xers and baby boomers, we could care less. Like, if I'm not doing anything wrong, please don't bother me, okay? But Gen Zs, they want that feedback from their managers. So making sure that you communicate regularly, recognizing your employees when they do something well, having some sort of recognition program or just a small office recognition, just doing some fun things. I know FGP, they do a lot of wonderful things at their organization, and they've been doing that for years, and I think they usually fall in like the top 5 best places to work in South Carolina. So I think I'll go ahead and pitch it on over to Emily now.
I'm very lucky and thankful to work with FGP. Like you said, we do a lot of initiatives, but it really starts with just, hey, happy 6 months, happy 3 months, just little recognitions here and there. We were talking about it can be so simple. It doesn't have to be this big, huge program or, this big, huge thing to keep retention. You just need to make your employees feel valued. And how do you do that? You thank them, you tell them happy birthday, get them a card, a little flower. If they are going through a hard time, acknowledge that. I think it just really gets back to basic people skills and making sure that, it's, again, a two-way relationship. I think, as you're having those one-on-one conversations, speak through growth. You probably as a business are wanting to grow. How can this person grow with you, and how do they want to grow with you, and making sure that you're doing that together. Exactly like you said, I think just as transparent as you can be, maybe if you have a team that is not on the day-to-day business, a monthly check-in, just an update. Here's where we're at, here's what we're doing. And just making sure everybody feels involved in it, has a part in it, but you also should have a part in their day-to-day, a little understanding of what's going on and how you can support them at the same time that they're supporting you.
I think they've done a great job at answering the question. The only thing that I would just add is we've talked about competitive wages and training. One of the other things that we see often is that employees want to know about the resources that are available to them to help with other things that are going on in their life, whether that is, behavioral health issues that they have and need to address those in order to be a high-functioning employee, transportation issues. We have found that, most individuals actually want to go to work. There was a sense, I think, coming out of COVID that there were a lot of people unemployed. There, was money flowing to those individuals, and they didn't want to go to work. But we've actually surveyed individuals, and there's a very small percentage that aren't working and didn't have any desire to go to work. Most of them wanted to work, but there was a reason or another why they couldn't. Transportation, childcare, they didn't feel like wages were competitive. They didn't feel like employers were offering flexible scheduling options to make it possible for them to go to work. So even in a situation, and I know we have a question about this, but even in a situation where an employer may not be able to offer a stipend for childcare or offer a stipend for transportation, making sure that employees know about how to access resources around those issues is very, very important. And I'm sure you've seen the recent announcements that have come out, to larger employers in the state partnering with a company called Tutris to offer childcare stipends. A small employer may not be able to offer $3,000 a year or $250 a month for childcare, but we have a really awesome resource in the state called the South Carolina Child Care Resource and Referral. It's a free service to individuals. Well, they will help someone be matched up with a child care provider. It takes the guesswork out for a parent of trying to figure out where are the child care providers in my area. How much is it going to cost me? Do they have openings? So making employees aware of free services like that, I think goes a long way as well. Even if you can't offer a transportation stipend, can you provide your employees with resources about the free and public transportation options that are available? Can you give them a route map so that they can know how to get to and from work every day? So I agree, it doesn't have to be big things. It's sort of a collection of simple things, and it doesn't have to be things that cost money. It can be a collection of free things, and that's where I would say absolutely leveraging your networks through Department of Employment and Workforce, SC Works, and many other state agencies. We get funding every single year to provide these services, and we want to provide them. So, access them and use them as part of the packages that you want to make available.
Great, all great points. Hope, to your point, a big notice, Gen X was kind of Ferber method where you're only told when you did something wrong.
Right.
And I equate that weekly checkup is kind of like the social media of the like. They want to be appreciated.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
great point. Okay, the next question, which you kind of led into, is what programs and initiatives have been implemented to address barriers to workforce, and how effective have these initiatives been in overcoming challenges such as education, training, childcare, transportation, and other barriers?
Yeah, so I'll just continue with a couple of points in additional to make about that. And I want to start by saying, the question asks, how effective have those programs been? It's difficult at times to measure the effectiveness of, say, an investment in transportation or an investment in childcare. I mean, obviously, what you're looking for in those situations is, were you able to retain more employees? And those employees that left, was transportation or childcare a reason, why they left employment? Were there employees that, never were able to accept a position because they reported that they didn't have transportation or childcare to get to that job? And one of the things that, we sort of say all the time is there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Like, there's not a silver bullet to address all of the issues that employers are facing with regard to workforce, or that job seekers are facing. And so what we try to do is to develop more so of a portfolio or a toolbox of resources, and as I mentioned, being able to sort of curate those packages and options for employers. But I will just mention some of the things that we've done. So in 2016, it's been several years now, we made an investment into public transportation, and the goal of those investments, or that investment, was to expand access to public transit. So if you've ever looked at a public transportation map, you'll see that every county in the state doesn't have access to public transportation. It, especially in rural areas, is very difficult for those counties to accumulate the funds that are necessary to purchase a vehicle, hire the staff, and operate the vehicle. And I don't at all profess to be an expert on public transportation, but there are local matching requirements. So even though there are federal funds that come into the state for public transit, a county has to accumulate the funds to be able to actually accept those grant awards. And so that's typically where the difficulty comes in, is while the federal money is there, if there's no local match, they can't get those federal funds. And so what we did with this investment was to essentially provide the match for those federal dollars to make it possible for there to be access to public transportation in counties where it did not exist. And we funded 6 projects. Of those 6, 4 are still operational today. And we continue our partnership with the Department of Transportation, as well as the Transportation Association of South Carolina, to think through how do we do something of that nature again with even greater impact than we had back in 2016. So, that's one investment or one example of something that I would say was a success. Another transportation-related initiative that we see happening in the state, and it's not necessarily our initiative, but Commute with Enterprise has been very successful partnering with employers in the state to provide ride-sharing availability to their employees. It seems to be a very successful model, and one that they're hoping to grow here in South Carolina. With regard to childcare, I've already mentioned the childcare resource and referral. That's a great program that is available, as I said, free of cost, and one that we try to promote when we talk with employers, that it's a great resource to just let your employees know about. The South Carolina Office of Rural Health is really focused right now on trying to partner with employers around behavioral health, so that there's an understanding of what is behavioral health, what does that include, as well as how you can help your employees to address and deal with behavioral health so that they can be effective on the job. So those are just some of the examples that I'll share with you today, but just reiterating, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, and just as Hope mentioned, taking ideas from employees. I mean, we're open to ideas and wanting to learn what employers are doing to address these barriers so that we can add those to sort of our toolbox or our portfolio.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to add that is a great resource that you might want to tap into is the local Human Resource Management Association. Columbia has one, Sumter has one. So there you've got a bunch of HR managers of, larger corporations, larger companies that are facing some of these problems that Nina is talking about. And they have come up with really great ideas, as far as getting past barriers for the workforce, whether it be child care issues or transportation issues. So I would encourage you to reach out to someone in one of those organizations or join it yourself so that you can tap into those HR managers who are already facing these things and already have solutions.
Okay. How can small businesses strategically leverage their benefits to not only attract top talent, but also to retain them for a long-term success?
I think this is just pretty similar to kind of what we've been going through. You'll notice a few themes today. But again, if you can't open up a full insurance policy, would you be open to offering reimbursement? Just thinking through those creative solutions. Some of my clients, I just wanted to share some ideas they're doing. Maybe it could inspire something that you could do. What about an hour-and-a-half lunch so that you have time to leave the office, go somewhere, get something done, or have a bite to eat for an hour, and then still get back to the office? Would that maybe allow for a little bit more production if they're not feeling so stressed in that 1 hour time? Open PTO policies, a little scary, but you're allowing them 1 to 2 more days. People often aren't taking advantage of these things. Flexible work schedules, like we mentioned, and what if you offer a fitness class once a month or a wellness activity? Sometimes just encouraging again that the wellness and making them feel comfortable and excited to be at work, encouraging things outside of just the day-to-day monotony. I think that works really well to bring in long-term success. They're going to look forward to coming to work. They're going to look forward to what you have on the schedule this month. And I think it just creates a little bit more enjoyment in the workplace, which will ultimately foster retention because they don't want to leave.
Yep, and those are great suggestions. And again, it's just about being flexible. I mean, and what Nina said earlier is there's not a silver bullet. There's not a magic bullet that's, one size fits all. You've got to kind of figure out what your employees want and what speaks to them. I have a client in Sumter that is now offering yoga classes, but not everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. So I'm not sure, if that's going to take off or not. So they might need to pivot and offer something else. But another thing that really doesn't fall in the benefits section, but I did want to make sure that I covered this today, is this generation, Gen Z, is so different than, baby boomers or Gen Xers. They're not going to go to a job and just sit at that computer job for 30 years and think everything is hunky-dory. You've got to give them learning opportunities and career development. So career development, that sounds like a term that kind of is scary, like a big corporation would use career development. It's really simple. It's really just sitting down with your employee and finding out what do you want to, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years, and giving them feedback on the skills that they will need, or different things that they will need, and kind of outlining a strategy for them to be able to achieve that, to be ready for when an opportunity does present itself. Then you've got a few people kind of in the slots, like succession planning. But employees want to know that there's a future for them, and not the same job that they're doing, sitting at that desk all day long for 8 hours. They want to know what is their growth opportunity.
And I think that actually is part of your benefits plan, right? So we're used to, this is our BlueCross, BlueShield insurance policy, and this is our 401k policy, but adding some of these things into the benefits plan really is what people are looking for now. I mean, I'm a millennial and I look for that too, not just my little sister as she's approaching her job search. But I think listing that, don't be afraid to say continuous growth and development, monthly or quarterly wellness activities. I think list everything you can to make it more exciting, to bring them in, but also these are going to keep people as well.
Yeah, I don't have anything more to add. I think all of those are great, and I especially love the idea of I would refer to that as career pathways. Like, what are the career pathways within the organization, and how can you promote those as a way to attract employees to your organization, but then use those career pathways and ideally stackable credentials and scalable wage opportunities to keep them there and growing with the organization.
One thing I'll add to that, and then we're going to wrap up for our networking thing, but a small benefit, and this is obviously I'm putting on my own hat, but there's an association for everything. I'm a member of the Association for Associations. Like a benefit like that, most of them are pretty cheap, and that gives them a professional network, that gives them learning development, and sometimes somebody to go whine about your other employees to, and it's a good benefit, and they'll also bring stuff back to your business from this learning. So consider putting that into your benefit plan too. So thank you, ladies. That was a great panel. I took a bunch of notes too. I did not know how much Dew did, so this was very insightful. We do want to do a real quick networking activity. In front of you, you have something called the 3 R's. So this is respect, recognition, and reward. These are great ways to help retain your people. So at each table, if you will notice, take a few questions and answer and share with one another about what your 3 R's would be for your firm or your small business. And we'll give you 5 minutes, talk to each other, and then we'll come back and we'll have Michael Yarborough come up and give us our door prize. So these benefits, they go from like small business.
Yeah, on specifically the incumbent worker training benefit that I was talking about, there's a
Yeah, I love Sarah. She's we've got so many cool programs going on right now. I didn't mention, because I don't know if it's specifically appropriate for this audience, but we have a grant from the Department of Defense where we're actually helping defense manufacturers implement advanced manufacturing technology. And it's $20-something thousand of support services that we're providing to those companies. We've got one where we're doing like cybersecurity related assessments and implementation. That's another $28,000 worth of services. So, I mean, there's so much. And we get this money. We operate normally about $30 million a year in DOR. And our call to action is to serve employers and job seekers. So those that we're not already engaging, like, especially for small businesses that might not have an HR department or be able to support HR consultants. I mean, we can essentially do that. We can review resumes. We can set up job fairs. I mean, we can do all of those things. Yeah, it's Tutris, Tootris, and they're a really cool national organization. But I think the benefit for them is sort of like the operational and data that they have. So from an operational perspective, they basically have a system where an employer can actually make the voucher for the stipend available through the Tutris system. The employee would then have an
childcare, they've got the vouchers from their employer, they can match and pay their childcare bill. And so Mercedes, I think I saw was $250 a month, which, I mean, you know, I have a child, I pay for childcare, so it helps a little bit.
That's not even a week.
It's not a week, but, I mean, it's something. I think Volvo is $3,000 a year, so I mean, that doesn't come out to a whole lot of money either. But I think it's just
Shows they're trying.
It shows they're trying. And for a family sort of on the cusp, I mean, not $250 a month, like, that's groceries,
Yeah,
you know, it's,
for sure.
so, yeah.
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 I'm sitting here going, oh my God. The only state agency I work with a lot is DOT, and they're not giving anything away.
So I'm gonna bring up the drawings for
Okay.
the door prize, and we can close
Oh,
our
thank
meeting.
you.
We're only gonna do the door prize for the elevator pitch because we don't have any.
Okay.
I'll grab it.
I'm only. Okay, I'm with you there. During COVID, I'd be wearing a coat and tie with shorts on. As soon as the Zoom came off, it'd come off.
Thank y'all very much. We do a lot with the state chamber as well.
Oh, good. Yes, y'all are a major partner.
The barometer,
Yeah, we're actually looking at how to, because I think that's just surveying fees. So our research director, we're looking at how to make it a more statistically significant survey. And to, you know, maybe it doesn't need to be every month. We've definitely seen the responses taper off quite a bit in 2024. November, we had a huge response rate. But ever since the holidays and the New Year, it's kind of plummeted. Okay, yeah. Twice a year, maybe. Yeah. Well, that's really great feedback. I'll definitely take that back.
so similar. I don't know, a lot changed.
That's a really great point.
All right, let me get out of this.
Oh, yeah.
And if there is a big change, you can put out a, you know,
Right. Oh,
There's a
yeah.
special request.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Association of Associations.
Well, it's called the South Carolina Society of Association Executives. So it's all the me's.
Sounds like.
Our biggest, like, I, have one question come back for the panel. So, well, the question that came from the audience from the panel is, how do you deal with retention in service industry type things like mechanics, servers, et cetera, when turnover can be very high? Any advice on retention there?
well, I think of what you would want as an employee in that state, right? So there can be turnover, yes, of course, but you know, what are you doing to make them feel valued? I don't think it's dissimilar from an administrative seat to a service seat. I think making sure that you still are inputting those. Maybe it looks different. Maybe you can't do a team lunch, but you can still add value to their day. You can still appreciate the work that they are doing. And I think that really does go a long way across all industries. And again, continuous learning and growth. If you can provide that path, maybe they're a server now, maybe they even started, it's not a receptionist, but at the check-in. But how can they grow a hostess? Is there a management path for them? If they start off on the service floor, where can they grow? I think having those conversations early and often, those weekly check-ins, I don't think that's just for a person that sits behind a desk. I think that's across the board, making them feel valued, checking in on them early and often, and providing a place for them to grow within your organization.
I couldn't have said it better.
As someone that spent many years in the service industry in college, I will say what kept me at a restaurant or bar was good management, good training, and communication. Like if you didn't have those, it's easy to find another job being a server or bartender. But the places and I don't mean just the training of one person, but the training of everyone and everybody knowing their responsibility, and made it go much easier. We got a question over here.
I was actually just going to add to my takeaway for that, and I think it applies to that same industry that I was even thinking about for myself, was the two statements that you made on defining the career pathway, but also scalable wage transparency for growth. Think about having, like for restaurant industry, having in your back room on a whiteboard, that your servers get a 6-month review to see if they can become a lead server, or get the head tables, or prep cook becomes whatever the next level of your layer is, and what the timeline is for you to visit that as a manager, and be able to take that and say, once you reach this threshold, this is your ability to be able to achieve this next level of wage or stability or income for the student. So it's that incentive to stay up front, the fact that you're not always saying that you're going to get that
And just to piggyback on what you're saying, that is great, and it opens up a door for you to have that conversation with the employee about what opportunities for improvement they have. Like if they're struggling in certain areas, it might just be a good segue for you to say, and these are some of the things that I think that you would benefit from in order to position you for that position.
Very good. Future panelist. Okay, so I got in front of myself. I'm so used to doing these that we don't have a TD giveaway this week, but we do have the elevator pitch. So I'm going to have you pick this, and this will be the person who gets to do their elevator pitch next time.
LaToya Gibson.
LaToya Gibson, MBA at Federation of Center for the Blind. And great that your card has Braille. Obviously, that speaks to your group, but maybe other people should think about that. Thank you, everyone, for coming today, and we look forward to seeing you next month.